I called police on my entitled son, by user no friendship 1658. Okay, so here's a recent update. I had a meeting with his in-house therapist this morning and the therapist and group home admin suggested sending him to a therapeutic foster home or a one-on-one psych unit as he is just too much for them to try and rein in. He's made sexual and physical threats to female staff and just been defying everyone. Even though my ex-husband signed his rights over to his mom, ex-mil the GH staff tried contacting him and my ex and his wife told them to never call again, that they don't want OS around their girls because he's been violent towards them in the past. The in-house said OS needs more help than she can give him and he seems to undermine her because she is a she. He has a true disrespect for women. I tried talking to him before I left and he said again, if I didn't tell them I lied then he'd not speak to me. I told him if that's what you want but you aren't coming home. He said to me, in front of everyone that he was coming home and we'd all be punished for this when he did. I told him that's not happened. OS said if I took him home today then my punishment might not be as severe. I told him he's not doing anything to me, he said we'll see bitch. And I walked away. The problem with the therapeutic home is nobody in our area is willing to take him due to how violent he is and if goes to a psych ward he will be locked down 23 hours a day. OS is also trying to put this on my spouse, saying his stepfather is to blame and if the courts would make my husband leave OS behavior would change. This is not true. He's just trying to cause me more problems. I told them my spouse has had very limited interaction with OS and has had no disciplinary action towards OS. The GH gave me OS phone, shoes, and other personal belongings. I went through the text on his to ex-mil after my husband did some sort of magic to unlock the phone and OS jokes with ex-mil about killing me, how he deserves to have my home to himself and how his little brother is an abomination because YS father is my second husband. Ex-mil is religious and doesn't believe in divorce. The phone is a prepaid phone so I'm going to deactivate it and put it away in case I need it for evidence. I texted ex-mil and told her I had his phone and would be keeping it in the next messages. She went nuclear powered because she knows she's busted. She started saying things about my deceased father and trying to like OS deflect the blame. I can't wait to see what lies she comes up with now. I'll know in a few days what the plan is, whether they can find someone to take him or if he's going to a lockdown unit. The judge said he can't come back to my house because the courts fear for the safety of my younger child. CPS is also involved now and the CPS worker asked if I'd be willing to sign OS over to the state completely and I said absolutely not. Okay, so I've noticed a lot of comments saying I abandoned my son, gave him to his paternal grandma etc. That is not the case. I live in a Commonwealth state with no grandparents' rights and she had 25 plus years of residency in a state that does have them. When I left her son, my ex-husband, she became furious. In her home state a grandparent has the right to intervene in the child's life during the parent's divorce and she used that to her advantage. A judge in her home state granted her visitation with my son even though he was born in my state. During a visit she filed for custody and was granted it until the divorce was finalized. The divorce took over 2 years due to my ex not wanting to sign papers and being difficult, so OS was almost 10 when it was finalized. I got something called a change of venue accepted and the custody case was transferred to my local court where it should have been their entire time. Of course ex-mil wasn't going to willingly hand him over so she kept filing appeals, continuances, and other things to prolong the case. It eventually went from family court to circuit court, which is also known as high court, for that judge to decide. By this time OS was at the legal age where he could have a voice in court and was established at a school in ex-mil's area. The judge said OS could finish school there and then be transferred up here for school. My ex-husband had signed his parental rights over to his mom and the judge had to take that into consideration. He did this to avoid the state going after him for support. The local judge ordered ex-mil to do therapy as well as OS and there were issues with them not complying. My ex-mil ruined her own son, he is in his 30s, won't work, doesn't drive and expects her to keep him up. I did nothing wrong aside from leaving my abusive ex-husband. The recent psych evaluation said OS lacks empathy for others and has delusions of grandeur or whatever it's called, meaning he thinks he's better than others. Ex-mil also had to do a session and the therapist said ex-mil is similar in regards and that her expectations aren't realistic. They both have superiority complexes. My ex-mil used to lock me out of my own home because she wanted to punish me or limit my contact with my own son. When she took him I did contact local and state police but they couldn't go into her state without the permission of officials there and by then she'd filed paperwork. She had nothing to use against me, would not abide by court set visitation etc. I have 2 homes, a business, and am very self-sufficient. My family life is good, not dysfunctional, we've done everything we can to incorporate my son into our family but he's refused to accept. I'm sorry I'm a shit mom for not allowing him to lock me out of my own damn house. For context, I, F35, have a son that was born when I was married to my first husband. I was young when he was born and his father was abusive to me. My ex-husband's mom was constantly in our lives, trying to take over and make my son hers. I left my ex when I was in my early 20s and my ex-mill ended up taking my son into another state and filing for custody. She went to a state that has grandparents' rights as ours didn't. I fought her for years and ended up getting remarried to my current spouse and we had a son together when I was in my mid-20s, a boy who is now 10. I see my oldest son only during the summer and the holidays. I finally got the court case moved to our local court and the judge said that I was wronged and ordered shared custody and visitation. My ex-mill made a huge deal that son needed to stay with her during the week because of school and the judge went with it so he could finish high school in an environment he was familiar with. My ex-mill has ruined my son, just like she did her own. She's given him any and everything he's wanted and asked for, she's taught him no respect and kept him very sheltered. She literally jumps on people if they don't give him his way. So in turn my son is loud, violent, and all around sad to be around. So he came up to visit during Halloween and showed his ass awful. My husband's mom lives with us and she isn't well, she's doing chemo. She's been a big help with my youngest son so that I could help my husband with our business. My youngest is a delight to be around, he's polite, funny and respectful, we've taught him that you don't expect anything unless you work for it. I went and picked my oldest up and his attitude started right away because his phone died and the charger I had in truck didn't fit his phone. He wanted me to get off the interstate and buy him an overpriced one from a truck stop or something. I told him no, I'd get him one when we got into town and that next time he needs to remember to bring one for the house and the car. I suggested making a packing list ahead of time. Now my youngest was in the back with his tablet playing quietly and my oldest realized the tablet was plugged into a car charger. He asked his younger brother for the charger and I told him it's an Apple charger, it won't work with your Android. My oldest said, "You don't know that, shut up." Next thing I know he's forcibly taken the Apple charger and is trying to fit it into his phone. When it didn't work he threw it into the back seat of the truck. My youngest just plugged his tablet back up without a word but I told my OS that his behavior wasn't acceptable. Fast forward to the next day, OS is still fuming at me because I made him wait, bad-mouthed me to his grandma ECT. I left to go to the office as did my husband and my mill was going to take my youngest son to the treat trail for Halloween. She asked OS if he wanted to go and he told her to kick rocks. My husband told OS not to speak to her like that. I knew trouble was brewing, I just didn't know how bad. Apparently, Mill and YS went to the treat trail and OS called Mill to tell her he wanted Hardee's, also known as Carl JRS. My Mill told him there was food at home and that it would be a while before she could get it. OS told her she needed to bring it now. My Mill told him to either eat what was at the house or wait. OS cussed her and hung up on her. Mill called me and I told her not to reward bad behavior. I told her we had plans to go out anyway later to eat, he could wait. So when Mill gets home, she tries to open the door and her key won't work. OS comes to the door and tells her that he's angry and doesn't want her in the house so he locked her out. He told her to wait outside until he either felt like opening door or until I came home. My Mill told him to open the door ASAP. She called me crying and I went the hill off. I called OS and told him he didn't make the rules in my house, he went by them and that he would be punished if he didn't open the door. He really thought I was playing. I left the office and went home, cue disaster. I opened the door and OS was there on the other side. Mill and YS had been waiting in her car and OS was blocking threshold saying he'd told Mill to keep outside, that it was her punishment for telling him no. I told him to move, now. I tried to push past him and he pushed me back outside threatening to lock us all out. I went to go inside again and he put his hand on my face and pushed me back out. I told him that's it, I'm calling the police. He didn't think I was serious but I did it. I told the dispatcher that my OS was refusing to let me into my own home and had put his hands on me. OS goes into a rage, and I mean a pure rage. He comes out of the door screaming profanity and threats, tries to take my phone and the lady tells me she'll send someone ASAP. I mean I had to literally fight him to keep him from breaking my phone. Then he goes after my youngest son. He tells YS that he hates him and is going to kill him because YS caused his life to be awful since he was born and that OS should be the only one getting anything from me. OS said he was my true son since he was born first and from my first marriage. It ex-mill bullshit. My mill locks YS in her cars and OS proceeds to kick, punch, and crack the windows and windshield in her car. OS goes after Mill just as my husband pulls up. He's telling Mill this is her fault, that she just needed to do what he said. My husband tries to restrain OS and OS is screaming he will have my husband arrested ECT. The police come and they immediately take over restraint on OS and put him into the back of the van. My husband and I explained the situation, and I told the officer that my ex-Mill had shared custody. So the officer calls ex-Mill and tells her what's happening. He puts her on speaker and she immediately puts the blame on us, saying we provoked him and are abusive to him. The officer told her that didn't seem to be the case as a neighbor had came forward and said she had called 911 also plus had a security camera that showed the entire thing. Ex-Mill jumps to saying the police here can't do anything with OS as he's a resident of another state, blah blah blah. The cop tells ex-Mill that's not the case and it seems like OS needs to learn he's too in control. The officer hangs up and ex-Mill immediately calls me. I put her on speakerphone. She's not the smartest yet thinks she is. Ex-Mill said if I had OS arrested that I would be a bad mom and that he was justified in what he'd said and done. I asked her about the true son thing and she said he was my only heir as he was my first son and from my first marriage and divorce is a sin. I told her that's not how it works. I told her I'm tired of him taking my home over and trying to hurt people. Long story short, he spent 3 days in juvenile lockup before a hearing and the judge asked me what I wanted to do, so OS is being sent to a group home. My ex-Mill fought the entire way but had no hold because both officers and my neighbor gave statements. Now ex-Mill is saying I'm ruining his life and I'm a shit parent. She's also accusing my husband of abuse towards OS. My entitled parents want to go to my wedding, after they disowned me last year, by user trail_oatmeal. I'll keep this brief. About 10 years ago, my family did not respond well to me growing up. I'm talking arguments over my partner, career, and place of living. I almost got kicked out before graduation and was looking for homeless shelters at 20, instead of studying like every other young person my age. We go silent for 3 years and are at very low contact. We reconnect to moderate visits, and then due to issues with my sibling in the pandemic, a housing crisis, and medical problems, I get estranged from my sibling. My sibling had a surgery and got angry I wouldn't get them groceries in person. I was so sick I was only using Instacart to keep myself safe. The rift with sibling is the second time this has happened. My parents go nuclear and discuss disownment regularly. I tell them to knock it off or we won't speak. To my understanding I am legally and financially disowned. I got engaged last year, to the partner my partners never liked. They want to gift money to control the ceremony and I tell them no. This starts another feud and they remind me I'm disowned. I go no contact. My parents occasionally reach out desperately wanting to go to my wedding. They are not invited, and we are too much on the rocks for me to entertain it. But also why do they need to go if I'm disowned? Update I told my school how my parents treat me, by user ch3wrr. Posted this on my ACC but posting it here now too. So, good news and bad news? Let's start with good news. If you're just seeing this, you'll wanna see part 1 or whatever. 1. The date of my move to my dad's has been pushed to 15th of December, this year. Not long at all. 2. The stepdad story has been sorted. I haven't gotten an update yet but I hope it'll be fine. 3. My life has improved a little bit, I guess. Bad news. 1. Stepdad's been acting worse than usual lately. 2. Mum's acting suspicious. 3. I'm having anxiety about everything. Let's elaborate now. Good news is self-explanatory. Point 3 is just mental health wise. I sorted out my sleeping schedule. Except tonight it got ruined again cause I've been overthinking for the past 2 hours. My stepdad has decided that because I'm moving out, I don't need Wi-Fi or respect anymore. I have data thank God though, but my SIM card expires in December. He also has decided that everything since the situation that comes out of my mouth is a lie. E.g. I was downstairs and was invited to sit on the couch with M and STD, calling him that cause it's basically what he is, but M was laying on one part of the L-shaped couch, STD on the other. I said there's no room, so M sat up, I say down. STD says stop spreading lies. Like. What? There wasn't room skull. He has also started accusing me of abusing our dogs. I love these dogs, B6R1, with my entire heart. I've had B since I was about 6 to 7. I'm going to have to leave him soon after the 6 years I've had with him. Uneasy face, I would never dream of touching them unless it's giving them love. But now, I turned a camera around in the kitchen, because STD is always watching me through it. He says it's for the dogs, but he's only ever used it when I am in there, confirmed by M, who wouldn't say a bad thing about him unless it was definitely true, and he told me turn it back around, unless you have something to hide, like what you're doing to those dogs. Another occasion, the dogs were playing, when B whimpered, which scared R and he whimpered. I laughed cause it was funny, how R whimpered just because B did. STD yells get away from those dogs. Stupid girl. I am sat at the table eating my dinner. I could probably ask M for the camera recording if anyone doesn't believe me. I'm genuinely disgusted by these accusations. I would never hurt these dogs, they're the only reason I've stuck around so long. Too weirdly, M hasn't given me any updates on the social services thing, and school has said they never contacted them. I'm like 80% sure she was lying to make me feel bad and tell the school I was lying or something like that. But I stood my ground, obviously. And now she has been acting weirdly kind to me. She talks to me, lets me bring the dogs upstairs, which has been a major no-no for the 6 years we've had B, and stuff like that. And I think I know why and it's working. I think she's trying to guilt me into not leaving because she'll miss me, etc. She's an amazing manipulator, she can fake cry with the snap of her fingers. She's done stuff before, where she accused my dad of buying prostitutes, and she was fake crying all over the place in a restaurant in public to make me feel bad. How do I know she was faking? As soon as she remembered she had a baby with her, she was completely different, giggling with him, playing with him, etc. And now she's guilting me to try and get me to stay, because my dad pays her £150 a month for maintenance and she likes money. I've been having anxiety, and my brain is saying don't leave, after all she's done for you, but I know it's dumb. I'm trying to fight back, I really am, but it's hard. I have an amazing life lined up for me with my dad. A nicer school, piano lessons that he wants to pay for, and he wants me to engage in sports, tutoring and even therapy. My mum couldn't even get me to the dentist, and so I never got the retainer I desperately needed. But still, my brain is saying she's doing her best, stay. And I feel so bad. I can't believe I'm losing sleep over this manipulative bitch. Also, she booked a holiday, that is on the date of my move. We go on holiday the 12th to 16th, I'm pretty sure, move on the 15th. I'm also missing a week of school for it. I'm pretty pissed off, I'm already really behind in school. My dad agrees it's a bad idea. If you have anything to add or any questions, I'll try my best to reply to as many people as possible. Have a great day and good night collision symbol. Entitled Mother Gets Family to Side with Her on Giving Her Daughter My Son's Christmas Present, by user FineBet. Posted this in r/2 hot takes and got told to post it here. So for context, my niece is 3 on Friday and is having a party on Saturday. My Sil has been planning her birthdays every year. Sil also buys niece expensive things that never get played with or worn. When niece turned 1, she went all out on a photographer and smash cake. My niece was pretty miserable and kept crying the whole time. Which in my opinion is very over the top, but that's my opinion. She complained my Phil went to a family funeral, his niece that was like a daughter to him, and not his granddaughter's first birthday party even though he has agoraphobia. We always get a gift for her, but this year I have had my hands full. Although whatever I give my niece she never wears or plays with. I have a son that's 1.5 and a daughter that's 12 weeks old. I was also in a mother and baby unit for 2 weeks recently for my mental health, so getting her a gift has gone on the back burner. Also, with me not working, my husband's paycheck covers essential items and sometimes going clothes shopping for our kids, which is rare in itself. Today Sil messaged me asking if we are going to niece's birthday party. I told her no, as my 2 kids and husband have COVID, which I told her about Monday. Sil said she understood about them having COVID. She then messaged me saying niece's gift is awesome and she's excited about it. I asked her what gift because I genuinely didn't have anything for my niece. She was talking about the interactive table, that's for my son for Christmas. I told her that's for my son, which my mother brought him from Costco, which I paid my mum back for. She told my in-laws, which have told me to give it to my niece because Christmas is far away and I can just get another one, and to stop causing drama within the family, which I refuse to do. Edit, my mum went to a town with better shops than where we live. She got my niece 5 books and a beach towel because she does swimming lessons. My mother got it all plus card and wrapping paper for $23. Also, Sil is my husband's brother's partner of 10 years. My mother doesn't even like my Sil because she can be quiet, unintentionally harassing, constantly messaging you, and tries to invite herself to stuff. I wrapped it up and gave it to niece as it's her birthday today. She absolutely loved her books and towel, wanting her dad to read them straight away. She even tried to cover her cousin, my youngest, with the towel, trying to use it as a blanket because baby cold, although we are currently very close to summer so it's hotter days. My wife and my mom hate each other. I become the victim every time being in the middle, by user Odins 98. My mom think low of my wife for whatever reasons. My wife suffered to a point and then decided to not talk to her anymore. Whenever my mom takes it out on my wife's parents, my wife expects me to go lethal towards my mom verbally. I stopped talking to my mom to avoid any more drama. I miss my parents, especially my dad. I wish my mom sets her ego aside and be nice towards my wife and her family. I am more or less a dead man mentally.